Hey everyone, Military Gun Guy here. We're going to be working on this Japanese Type 14 Nambu pistol. This one came in with quite a bit of rust pitting. You can see it there, some spots there, typically under the grips. There's some areas down in there on the back strap and whatnot. This one is mostly matching. It looks like it was an Arsenal rebuild at one point. So what I did was I documented everything. This is actually considered a small ring Nambu, which was the small trigger guard when they originally were issued. Many of the ones you see are the later wore large ring. It had kind of a bulge so that they could get a fingered or gloved finger in there. Typically these do have a lot of pitting just because of the environment that they were stored in or storage after the war. On this one, the trigger and the bolt are actually left in the white. The safety, the cocking knob, screws, grip screws, and there's some of the smaller parts were done in a rust blue. On these, actually, the inside surface was left in the white. So you'll see these left in the white, and then they actually rust blue the outside. So what I'm going to actually show you today, what happened, I thoroughly degreased this one. And then I sent it off to my bead blasting guy, and he took all the finish off, left a nice, clean bare metal finish. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you kind of a quick primer on how to polish out, and you can probably see them there, but you can polish out these rust pits. I'm going to be using a belt sander for this one. There's different grades you can use, depending on how aggressive you want to get with it, because we're going to be basically sanding this whole area. You do have to be aware of the marks. There's a serial number there. There's another number there, which obviously we're not going to get because no one's going to see it. But I'm just basically concerned with improving this section so it doesn't look so nasty. In my opinion, a blue job over existing pitting just kind of screams amateur, which I am too. But at the same time, it's like, I'm trying to bring this thing back to its original kind of glory. So the key to this is, well, first of all, definitely recommend safety glasses. Like an idiot, when I first started this, I was doing a Nambu, wasn't wearing safety glasses, ended up in urgent care with a small piece of metal in my eye. Trust me, it's not fun. But what you're going to basically do with your belt sander is you're just going to be kind of using it in a motion like this, stopping every so often, wiping off the surface to see how much you're actually removing. You don't want to go too much. What you want to do is you want to basically level the surface to where once you put your bluing over it, the pitting actually will mostly disappear. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be using a couple of sanding blocks, and we're going to be putting a grain back into the metal. Excuse me, these things were not high polished blue. These were sort of a kind of a medium matte blue. And what they did is similar to the Lugers. If you look at a Luger surface that comes from the factory, you'll see almost like a tree, there's grading in the metal. So whether they go, left and right or back and forth, it depends on how they work the metal before they actually rust blued or did the final bluing process. I have a fairly worn belt on this one. I want to start with that to make it easy. I do recommend gloves. These things get hot. Also, you may see me periodically just touching it like this. When you do this, it's dry and right now in Las Vegas, and it's cold. There's a lot of static electricity, and you may end up getting to where you'll actually get zapped with your gloves. It's not really a great feeling. So what I actually do, and I know this sounds kind of stupid, but I actually take one shoe off and I put my bare foot on the ground in my garage. That sort of grounds me. It happens with rifle stocks and it happens with metal. But this buildup of static electricity, sometimes you'll even see it where it's actually arcing over. So I don't really like getting zapped. I'm not a masochist. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I got my shoe off, I got my gloves on, I got my glasses, and then we'll go from here. So I'll kind of show you the different techniques and kind of show you, again, we're going to mainly concentrate on this area right here where it's really, really bad. So here we go. Okay, that's just a couple seconds of passes. You can see that the pitting is a lot more prominent now. Don't worry if this gets really shiny and this is still kind of matte, because you're going to actually go over this, or I'm going to go over this. You're not going to do anything. You're going to watch. But I'm going to go over this to level this finish out. Once I get these pits down to an acceptable level to where they'll be mostly invisible once I put the top coating on, because anything that you do to to the part is going to show up underneath your coating. So again, the mark of a bad blue job is not taking the time to really get the metal out. Unfortunately, this is kind of a time-consuming process. It's why a lot of shops charge a lot of money for this, is because, to get this thing really, really nice and even does take some time. I don't recommend going in here at all with the belt sander, because you can't really control it. You'll end up getting cuts in the metal. So I would just go right to about here, and then you can hand polish. That point, you can hand polish this area in here. So you maintain, what you're trying to do is maintain that very nice. Get out of my camera range. That very nice, sharp, even kind of finish to it. So we are going to keep going. Here we go. All right, so another couple of passes, the pitting is significantly reduced. It's still there, obviously. I can switch to a slightly heavier grade of belt. Usually a worn belt. This is about a medium, I think, but this has actually been worn on another gun, so it's giving more of a polished look to it. Again, and I can go all the way around with this thing. But basically, if I want a slightly more aggressive cut, if you're a little more confident with your skills, you can put a new belt on there, but you have to be much more careful because it's going to cut quite as quickly. Now, granted, you have a lot of room in there on the top, so you're not going to have to really worry too much. It's mainly cosmetic, but obviously if you're getting into this portion here where the metal is thinner, you don't want to get that too thin, because then you're going to start having problems with just the overall structure of the metal itself. So I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm going to get this thing mostly done. You kind of get the basic technique. Again, you kind of want to roll it back and forth just like that, so it keeps the belt basically moving. So you're just kind of like almost like just polishing, sort of not like a shoe shine, but like that, to where you let the belt do the work. You don't want to really push into it. Just let the belt do the work. And it'll give it a nice even finish. You can then do this, you can clamp the barrel in a vise, hit it with some emery cloth like in a shoe shine motion, and that'll actually level all this out as well. Then what you do your final degreasing, and then you do your whatever rust bluing or your Duracoat or your Alumahide or whatever. I'm going for an original finish, so I'm going to go for a rust blue finish, which takes longer, but it looks better. It's more durable. But again, the underlying metal is the most important. That's why it costs so much money to get bluing done, because of the fact that they had to take so much time in prepping the metal and making it look correct. So like I said, when we come back, this thing will be mostly polished, at least the pits will be out, and then I can show you some other techniques as far as actually blending in the marks so that the barrel looks nice and even once it goes into either the hot blue tank or the rust blue process or what have you. Quick side note, something also real quick. If you're trying to figure out the direction of the grain of the metal, I don't know, I'm hoping you can see this, but the grain of this metal actually runs this way. And you can almost, if my camera wants to focus, you can almost hopefully see lines running this way back and forth. So when they actually did the final polish, what they ended up doing was, whatever technique they used, is they ended up, you're basically going to be going like this, and you're going to be actually putting that grain back into the metal. You're going to give it that matte finish, but you're also going to be making this, again, you're kind of knocking down that high polish from the sanding belt or the buffing wheel. I don't really like using buffing wheels on military firearms just because you get that super shiny look. Military firearms typically had a matte look to them. So it's just something to consider. I've seen Arisakas with these like beautiful high polished blue finishes, but other than the early type 99 long rifles, they didn't really exhibit that degree of finishing because they're military rifles. They don't want these damn things to shine. So anyway, sorry about that. All right, here's a bit more polishing done. Obviously, it's really, really shiny. A lot of the pitting has been, again, minimized. I'm going to probably change the belt on this only because I'm not necessarily satisfied with the degree of cut that I'm getting out of it. I don't necessarily want to polish this. I actually want to remove the pitting and save the final polishing by hand, where I have more control over it. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get in these areas, something you have to be careful of. Just because, well, you're going to run into this stuff and you're going to start grinding the edges down and you're going to fuck up your gun. Also, something to be aware of is on these edges, instead of cutting into the edge like this, you're actually going to want to flip it to where you're actually going to roll you want the direction of the belt going away, or sorry, toward, how do I explain this? You don't want the belt cutting this way. You don't want the belt cutting down, because then you're going to start cutting into this. You actually want to cut this way, so it's polishing this while leaving this surface nice and clean. If for whatever reason you screw this up, you can always very lightly draw file and repair it. Draw file, you do just clamp it and you'll basically just very lightly just go with the draw file, and it'll actually just even this area out. You are working the metal, you are removing metal from this, so you do have to have a compromise between, hey, I'm done and this is the best that I can do, or I can keep going, or I just sanded my gun down into nothing and it's basically junk and it's a wall hanger or trash. That is a serious consideration. Some pits are just so deep that you really can't do a damn thing about them. This barrel, again, is not bad, maybe a few thousandths. I can minimize this quite a bit, and get this thing looking pretty original, and nice and even, and not necessarily looking like it had been, improperly stored. So just something to think about.